Alright guys, so in this video we're going to be going over how to manipulate the different objects and shapes in Tinkercad. Outside of moving and resizing objects, the first thing that you have to do to manipulate a shape is normally add another shape. So let's start off with a cube, and maybe let's do a circle as well. Now, right now you can tell these are two totally different shapes. They're two totally different colors. One of the easiest ways to manipulate a shape and kind of like build onto it is by simply grouping the objects together. But first, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to move the sphere somewhere so that it's kind of connected to the cube that we have. Alright, so now, as you can see, it really just looks like two random shapes kind of overlapped on top of each other. But now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to do what we did in one of the other videos, and I'm going to select both shapes by just dragging a big selection box over it. And then there's two ways I can do this. I can either group by clicking Command G on my keyboard, which is pretty much the universal key command for group, or I can go up here to the group button, and as you can see, once you do that, it turns everything into one simple shape. So I'm going to undo that really quick, and something really cool about this feature is not only does it allow you to group two shapes together, but you can also turn this blue piece into what's called a hole. You might have noticed this right here. Also, these shapes right here that are gray and white, those represent holes. But if I click this blue shape, right, and then instead of having a solid color, I click hole, this kind of gives you, the idea of how deep it might be, but you can't really see it fully. But when you select both of these shapes and then you hit group, it cuts the hole into the shape for you. So that's something that's really cool and unique in Tinkercad. They make it super easy to cut holes into different shapes. Alright, so now we're going to lay out a couple of just like random shapes that we have in our basic shapes area. And we're going to explore these menus a little bit more because we just looked at how you can change like the color or you can make it a hole. But there's also all these other things that we looked at. We looked at the length, width, and height, but we never really looked at radius and steps. So we're going to take a look at that really quick. So when you change the radius of something, it kind of rounds the corners for you, which is a really cool feature and really kind of allows you to bring your design to another level. Now we're going to go into the cylinder really quick, and this is really cool because you can actually change the amount of sides. So let's say you want it to be a little bit more rigid, you can kind of go and bring the sides down to 12, or if you bring it up it gets a little bit smoother, but I would really just keep it at whatever the default is if you're not kind of like going more towards less sides, because then it'll kind of make the 3D print a little bit weird. Another really cool thing is bevel. So bevel, it doesn't round the edges, but instead it kind of gives it like a soda can look where it kind of has a little bit of a flat side at the top and the bottom. So this is really cool as well. Now you may have seen steps on some of the other ones, but you really see it come to life when you use the sphere. Because if you zoom into the sphere, you'll see that it's just made up of a bunch of flat sides. But the more you bring it up, the less flat sides there are. But also, when you bring it down, there's less flat sides. So you really don't see that much on any of the other shapes, but on the sphere, you can definitely kind of see that. And you can definitely utilize this in one way or another. Alright, so last up, we're going to focus in on the cone. Cones are interesting because cones can kind of be like a bunch of different sizes. So if you look, there's two different radiuses. There's the top radius, which controls the top, and the base radius, which makes the base of the cone either bigger or smaller. This is another one that has the sides option on it. So yeah, that's just a couple of different ways that you can manipulate different shapes. And I would just say look through all of these different basic shapes, and whenever you put a new shape on your design, open up that menu and just see what you can do with it to see if it'll help you kind of enhance your design in any way. Alright, so last but not least, we are going to go over two more things, and that is the Align tool and the Mirror tool. So for the Align tool, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw three rectangles, and just for the purposes of, education, we're going to make it so that they're not aligned already, and I'm just going to go to the top view here. Alright, so to access this Align button that is grayed out right now, you have to have multiple objects selected, and then you click the Align tool. You can also click L on your keyboard to get to that as well. And what you'll see is it's a little bit different than any other Align tool you guys have probably used because it uses these little circles as guides instead. So there's still the option of left align, middle align, and right align. But because we're working in a 3D space, they have to kind of give it to you on each axis. So there's one here, and one here. Now, the one right here is only if there's something kind of like floating off the plane, so we're not going to focus on that right now because as you can see, they're all on the same level anyways. But right now, you can see that these are not aligned and perfectly next to each other. If I clicked this, what would happen is it would just stack them all. So we're not going to do that. But this one is really what we want to look at because this is going to allow us to align them and make them all perfectly next to each other. So yeah, that's really how the Align tool works. There's not much explaining to it. It's kind of one of those things where you'll mess around with it. And luckily they do have these cool like orange guides that are really helpful, so you don't have to keep clicking things until you get what you're looking for. Alright, so the last thing we're going to go over is the mirroring tool. And I thought the best way to kind of go over the mirroring tool is to create something that's kind of on an angle, or something that would need to be mirrored in a real life scenario. So I made like, I don't know, a robot arm kind of, and we're going to work with this. So if you're building like any type of, symmetrical creature or thing, like a robot, then you're going to probably have two arms and you're going to want one of the same exact arm on each side, unless, it's a different robot. But yeah, so I made an arm, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to copy and paste this, Command-C, Command-V, and put them right next to each other. But then I'm going to select one of them, and I'm just going to go up to the mirror tool, or you can click M on your keyboard. And as you can see, same as before, because we're in a 3D space, there's 3 different types of mirroring. This one won't really do much, but the other two are pretty helpful. And as you can see, when you hover over them, you can see the diagram of which one will actually do the job that you're looking for. So obviously in a scenario like this, this would be what we would be looking for. So now I have 2 arms at the same exact angle on 2 different sides. Alright guys, so that's pretty much it on manipulating objects in Tinkercad. I hope this helps, and have fun!